You have any questions for that? No? Okay.
Did you do something to your children? Are your children still alive?
There's nothing okay about killing children. Nothing.
Hey, true crime heroes. Welcome back for part 3 of our deep dive into the Larry Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Today, we continue to explore this twisted tale of deception, betrayal, and murder that spans time, space, and even the barrier between life and death. If you're new here or new to the story, Larry Vallow Daybell was convicted last year on multiple charges of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and grand theft. Her victims were 2 of her own children, JJ and Tylee, and her new husband's first wife, Tammy Daybell. The trial showed Larry believed in a world of zombies and demons. She believed she was an exalted goddess, singular in her beauty, exuding greatness, with divine abilities including teleportation, the ability to call up natural disasters, and the ability to smite her enemies with her mind. Most importantly, Larry believed she was charged by Jesus himself to round up the 144,000 souls that are to be resurrected to heaven according to the book of Revelations in the New Testament. At trial, the prosecution's case was predicated on the usual suspects of motives: sex, money, and power. But the story just kept spreading in wider and weirder directions, and I kept coming back to a couple of fundamental questions. How did Larry's traditional middle-class LDS upbringing and the LDS doctrine contribute to her buying into these extreme and magical thinking patterns? How did the beliefs she and Chad taught provide a framework and justification for murder? In short, how does someone get to the point where murder seems like a better choice than simply breaking ties and walking away? If you haven't seen the first 2 episodes, I recommend watching them first and then coming back to this one. In the first video, we covered how her crumbling marriage to her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, ended in his tragic death, and we explored some of the LDS prepper culture that was the breeding ground for her extreme beliefs. In the second video, we discussed her brother Alex and his propensity to do violence on Larry's behalf, with a look into the charges he faced when he assaulted Larry's 3rd husband, Joe Ryan. We also looked at his attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. Today we will cover Larry and Chad's capture, Larry's trial and conviction, as well as her sentencing. We'll wrap up by taking a listen to her deluded and infuriating statements at sentencing and take a quick peek at what's next for her as well as for Chad Daybell. Hello and welcome to the channel, where we explore true crime, false prophets, and pop culture. If you like this video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Let's dive in. We'll start today in beautiful Hawaii, specifically on the island of Kauai, on January 26, 2020, 2 months after Larry's initial conversation with Idaho detectives. Local Kauai law enforcement finally caught up to Chad and Larry poolside at a swanky resort and served Larry with court orders compelling her to produce her missing children. She appeared relaxed and aloof, like she didn't have a care in the world.
Mr. Vallow, you can serve.
Do you have any questions regarding that?
So it is 14:39 hours on January 25th.
Do you need something?
Any questions?
You have any questions for that? No?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
The next day, agents from the FBI, as well as both the Idaho and Kauai police departments, served Chad and Larry with a search warrant for the black SUV they were driving. They seized the vehicle, leaving the couple to continue on foot. Nate Eaton from East Idaho News was on hand to capture this exchange.
Why have you guys been in Hawaii for so long? Listen, just tell people what's happening. There's people around the country praying for your children, praying for you guys. Why don't you give us answers?
That's great.
That's great. That's great that they're praying for you, praying for your kids. What? You have nothing to say? Did you do something to your children? Are your children still alive? That's a simple question. I've got 3 kids of my own. I can tell you every minute where my kids are at. Where are your children?
Nate did a great job articulating what we were all thinking. Of course, Lori did not produce her children. But over the next few weeks, the car search yielded important clues, including multiple copies of JJ's birth certificate, social security cards for both the kids, Tylee's credit card, and JJ's iPad, which normally never left his side. Finally, in February, Lori was taken into custody for failure to comply with the order while Chad looked on. She was charged with deserting her 2 minor children and was extradited to Idaho. The bail was set at $5 million. Larry Woodcock, JJ's paternal grandfather, responded to the news with characteristic realism. "It's a step in the right direction," he said, "but it's probably not good news for the kids. We only want one question answered. Where are JJ and Tylee?" For 4 months, Lori sat in jail, refusing to help authorities while the world worried about and looked for JJ and Tylee. The pursuit of justice took a grim and tragic turn in June 2020. The remains of JJ and Tylee were found buried on Chad's property in Idaho. This devastating discovery confirmed the worst fears of a nation and the world. It became evident that the children had met a tragic fate at the hands of those who were supposed to love and protect them. Chad called Lori from where he sat in his truck in his driveway as the search began. Just listen to the defeat in Chad's voice. He knows it's only a matter of time before the law comes after him.
This is a call from and paid for by
Lori,
Hello?
are you okay?
No, they're searching.
What, are they in the house?
No, they're out on the property.
Are they seizing stuff again?
They're searching. There's a search warrant, and so
Okay.
glad you called.
Yeah.
And we'll see what transpires.
Once it was clear the bodies had been found, Chad took off in his vehicle in a feeble attempt at an escape. Like a low-energy OJ, he and his white pickup were overtaken by authorities just a few yards from his house, and he was taken into custody. As the depths of Lori's depravity became clearer, her family struggled to comprehend. Throughout the trial, prosecutors highlighted Lori's chronic arrogance, entitlement, and indifference. Here she is on a recorded line from jail after the kids were found, talking to her eldest son, Colby. Colby adored his half-siblings and was especially close to Tylee. Colby also adored Lori, and you can hear the grief in his voice as he struggles to come to terms with the fact that his entire immediate family is gone. Unimaginably, Lori laughs in his face. Let's take a listen.
You will know.
Murder.
One day,
Murder.
you will know what actually happened.
You're right, because you know what, Mom?
And we all will stand there with
everything
We-
into the light. You're absolutely right. He will convict the people who act in his name with pure blasphemy. This is funny? This is funny? This is funny. You're laughing. Like, this is funny. How come your camera's on, Mom? You don't want to look at me in the eye?
But it is in her conversation with her sister Summer where Lori's mask slips the most, or at least in a different way. Only a few years apart, Summer and Lori were very close growing up. Summer adored her older sister, and even went on national TV with her mother to defend Lori before the kids were found. Let's take a look at that clip, and then we'll play Summer's jailhouse call to Lori.
If something has happened to those children, it is not by her doing. And it's not by her permission to do something. There is no way that she did anything to them. There's just no way.
Yeah. So now let's go to the jailhouse call. Listen for the moment Lori inadvertently admits she knew all along her kids were dead and buried while she danced on the beach in Hawaii at her wedding to Chad.
You went off to Hawaii and were dancing on the beach while your kids are in the ground? Yeah, months later.
Lori's months later comment is the closest she has ever come to admitting she knew her kids were dead. Lori's sole focus was and has continued to be on what she believes is her right to happiness, regardless of the devastation it inflicted. Summer's response is right on target. Let's listen.
Do you think that your mother and your sister and your son don't deserve to know that the children are gone? Why were we cut off? You saying you want to go on and be happy? You're just going to be happy without your family and your life until you're stuck in jail, and I'm the only one stupid enough to be your friend when I've been your best supporter, Lori. I've loved you my whole life. I still do. I can't bear to think anything bad about you.
This call is especially hard to hear. However, Summer's confusion and disorientation are common for trauma victims. Lori victimized so many people when she decided to dehumanize and eliminate JJ, Tylee, and Tammy. Even with Lori and Chad behind bars, justice for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy seemed like an endurance event. First, there were COVID delays where courts were shut down while they figured out how to conduct business amid lockdown. Then there were 2 protracted periods where Lori was declared mentally incompetent to stand trial. It's interesting to note that Idaho is one of only 4 states that doesn't allow an insanity defense. Then, when after 2+ years, the trial was set to begin, yet another wrinkle presented itself. For one thing, the prosecution wanted to bring evidence against Lori in particular at a late date. The other was that Chad wanted to sever his case from Lori's, claiming he would present a different defense, and also noting that Chad was okay with waiving his speedy trial rights where Lori was not. The judge granted the severance, and as a consequence of late evidence, he took the death penalty off the table for Lori. This cleared the way for Lori's trial to start in April of 2023. As with any crime, the rubber hits the road in the courtroom, and this case is no exception. It is such a strange story with so much evidence to present, it was perhaps a good thing for the defense that the case was delayed. Particularly, it was a good break for Lori because the evidence turned out to be one of her own hairs that was found stuck to the duct tape that bound JJ's body and probably shattered any lingering doubt in the jury's mind about her guilt. During Lori's trial, the evidence was so strong, so emotional, so overwhelming that it seemed the defense acknowledged defeat even from the very beginning. Indeed, they declined to call any witness of their own and rested when the prosecution did. It may have been that they felt they had accomplished their most important goal in disappearing the death penalty for Lori. At her sentencing, Lori chose to use her time to speak to the world on her behalf, and the result was infuriating, insulting, and disrespectful, but perhaps not surprising. Take a listen.
I would like to start by quoting John from the New Testament in the Bible. In John chapter 8, verse 7, Jesus says, "He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her." Then in verse 15, Jesus says, "Ye judge after the flesh. I judge no man. And yet if I judge, my judgment is true." Jesus knows me, and Jesus understands me. I mourn with all of you who mourn my children and Tammy. Jesus Christ knows the truth of what happened here. Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. Accidental deaths happen. Suicides happen. Fatal side effects from medications happen.
It's curious she decides to mount what seems to be a defense in her sentencing remarks. It doesn't seem like she gets how a prosecution works. Given that she refused to defend herself at the time it would matter, and that she reportedly instructed her counsel not to use a blame Chad defense, it will be interesting to see if she regrets her loyalty once Chad throws her under the bus in his case. We may never know. Let's continue.
I have a different perspective in life because in 2002, when I was pregnant with Tylee, I died in the hospital while in labor with her. They tried to stop my labor. They put me on the table and they put something in my IV, and I felt my spirit falling to the floor. I was standing near my pregnant body, watching the doctors try to revive me, which took them a few minutes. In that time, my sister Stacy was standing to my left. I turned to hug her and was surprised that her spirit was as tangible as a physical body, because I knew I was in spirit and she was in spirit. And I later returned to my body. Because of this experience, I have access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven, including my children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, my sisters, Stacy and Lolly, my aunts and my uncles, and my grandparents. I have had many communications with Jesus Christ, the Savior of this world, and our heavenly parents. I've had many angelic visitors have come and communicated with me and even manifested themselves to me. Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world.
Many people imagine their loved ones in a better place once they have passed. So it makes sense that as a human being, Lori might use this tendency as some kind of coping mechanism to self-soothe as she sits alone with her thoughts and memories of murdering her kids. In reality, however, by choosing this venue and this narrative, she continues to victimize the survivors of these crimes with her narcissistic violence. Remember, many of the folks most impacted by these crimes hold deep religious beliefs. Not only is Lori using the kids she killed and discarded to wrap herself in heavenly glory, but she directly enlists Jesus and other angelical beings as her accomplices. And it gets worse. Let's listen.
Tylee is free now from all the pains of her life. Tylee suffered horrible physical pain her whole life. I sat with Tylee in the hospital year after year after year while she screamed in pain when the morphine wasn't even enough to take away the pain of her pancreatitis. I sat there while she cried and I held back her hair while she threw up. And I am the only person on this earth who knows how much Tylee suffered in her life. But I never stopped worrying about her. One of the times that Tylee came to me as a spirit after she died, she commanded me and she said to me, "Stop worrying, Mom. We are fine." She knows how I worry and how I miss her. The first time JJ visited me after he passed away, he put his arm around me and he said to me, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom. I love you. And I know you loved me every minute of my life."
Incredibly, Lori casts herself as a hero. It is she who cared and sacrificed for Tylee. She even gets choked up when she starts to say that she's the only person on earth who knows how much Tylee suffered. She wants credit rather than condemnation for her murders. She even goes so far as to put words of comfort and absolution in both Tylee and JJ's mouths. I felt sick when I heard it, and I can only imagine what impact it had on the survivors. Lori also had a few things to say about Tammy. Let's listen.
My eternal friend, Tammy Daybell, has visited me on several occasions. She came to bring me peace and comfort, and I know that she is extremely busy helping her family, especially her children and grandchildren. And I have a great love for Tammy.
A great love for Tammy?
My beautiful children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, rest safely this day in the arms of Jesus. My wonderful friend, Tammy Daybell, rests safely this day in the arms of Jesus. And I look forward to the day when we are all reunited and I too will rest with them in the arms of my Jesus.
Notice how, just like Chad, Lori rewrites history to include a near-death experience that serves to elevate her above everyone else and provides justification of her evil behavior. This is what religious zealotry does. It robs people of empathy and perspective. It justifies the basest and cruelest of actions with the highest of motives. The entire speech was a masterclass in delusion, and thank goodness Judge Boyce wasn't having any of it. I loved how he handled this, so let's take a listen.
You killed those children to remove them as obstacles and to profit financially. While you were enjoying your new life in Hawaii, countless law enforcement officers, family members, and volunteers were searching for your children. They were found dead, burned, mutilated, and dismembered, and buried like animals. You collected public-funded assistance payments meant for them, and that was blood money you kept for yourself. Tammy Daybell was murdered as a result of your conspiracy. If you were planning a wedding to her husband while she was still alive, you took her life away, you destroyed that family, fractured it to the point where there are relationships that will probably never be mended that have rippled as a result of what's happened. And I don't think to this day you have any remorse for the effort and heartache you caused.
Lori was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As satisfying as Lori's conviction was, The march for justice continues. Lori has been extradited to Arizona from her Idaho jail to stand trial for the murder of Charles Vallow and the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. Her trial is set to begin August 2024. Meanwhile, Chad's Idaho trial is underway. Interestingly, if not surprisingly, his strategy is to shift the entire blame to Lori, arguing he was just an ordinary guy and a faithful husband before he met Lori. While it may be true that he didn't directly use his hands to kill, just as Lori didn't, the idea that he is an innocent victim is hogwash. We will take a deep dive into the belief system that he held long before he met Lori, one where he elevated his status by false testimony, and we will show how he planted the seeds of his wife's death long before he allegedly conspired to have her killed. Before we go, I'd like to take a moment to remember Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. Tylee and JJ, who will never reach adulthood and realize their full potential, but who were nevertheless so deeply loved. And Tammy, who touched so many lives as a librarian, wife, mother, daughter, sister, and more. Her family has created the Tammy Douglas Daybell Foundation to honor her memory as well as her passion for teaching kids to read. If you would like to donate, I'll leave the link in the description. This is where we'll end the video for today. If you're still watching, first, thank you for sticking it out. And if you'd like this video, please give it a like. If you didn't, it's perfectly fine to give it a dislike. Either way, I'd love to know your thoughts about the case, so please leave a comment. Until next time, be safe, be well, love yourself, love your neighbor. Bye for now.